A fanfare. Yes, folks, it's Peter Elgar, a funny old film photography bloke from Brentwood, Essex, England. And here is another treasure, but it's not mine. I've only got it on loan. Wow, what is it? It is a Canon rangefinder camera from 1955 to 56. On the back it says Canon 1152, 1955 to 56. The lens is worth 300 quid and the body is worth 300 quid, 600 quid. I can't buy it because my wife will divorce me. I'd like to have it, but I've got it on loan from this gentleman that I told you about with my F65 video, the one with the 15 Leicas and about 200 other cameras. And he brought this one out. And he's never used it either. Mint condition Canon rangefinder. He said, would you like to put a film through it? Oh, yes, please, I said. So I took it home and I treated it with kid gloves. That's the first time I actually touched it with bare hands. I normally use my gloves, but for safety I screwed on this little wrist strap here because it had no case, no strap, and also I put on a 49mm lens hood and I've taken all the picture with it because on it he's got a filter. It's a Hoya HMC UV filter, 49mm, but the actual lens is a 48. So there's an adapter here, and it's a 1.4 Canon lens, mint condition from 1955. I didn't put any spit on it. Wow, we better cover that up quickly. Wow, so it's a beautiful thing. So we'll go through it. It's like the Leicas. It's got all the controls on top, the old screw thread Leicas. So you must remember, you wind it first before you change the shutter speed. So it's exactly the same as my Leica 3C. It only goes to 500th, doesn't go to 1000th. It's a beautiful, quiet shutter. If you want a slow speed, you put this to 30 round here. That drops into the red 30, and on this front dial you have another set of speed, and you press this little button and you can change that to a slower speed. So if you want it on a quarter of a second, it's 4 for a quarter of a second, and it's actually accurate. Yes, it works. So we'll put it back to 30 because I haven't been using as much slow speed. There we are. Then we're on the 30th now. This is the little lever. You have it on A for advance the film. If you want to rewind the film, you put it to R, and then you pull it up, turn that for about a quarter of an hour until you hear a click, which I did. It took me ages to rewind the film. There's no lever wind, it's too old. So it's got this node knob, and you hear a click and the film comes out of the cassette. So let's make certain that's all safe. So there's no hot shoe because it's not electronic. It doesn't take any batteries, remember, it's too old. You have to guess the exposure or you use a separate meter. This is the frame counter. When you've loaded the film, you've got to remember to turn this to 0. And you've got a little catch here, and you turn that round until it's on number 0. So I did that. I remember that to do that, all right, yeah. There's a guard here for your button. Then here you have magnification for the rangefinder window, because this is the combined viewfinder and rangefinder. You look through here, and in the centre is your rangefinder circular spot, which is this one, magnified into the viewfinder. There's a beam splitter. So that little circle you see inside there normal rangefinder. See a little coloured circle, and when your two images go together like that, your snap is in focus. But here you can magnify it. If you put to 1 times, it goes for 100mm field of view for a lens of 100mm. And when 1.5 times, it magnifies it up to a lens for 135 focal length. And I actually use that because I fitted it with a Russian Jupiter 135mm lens. It's a screw thread. Now the grease is very stiff because it hasn't been used. You never use it. The grease is extremely stiff, and when we try to do the aperture, especially out in the cold weather of Brentwood High Street, I found the lens kept trying to unscrew. Here, changing the aperture here on f8 now, f11, trying to get back to 1.4 here, the lens kept unscrewing. There's the focusing. You see, the focusing is stiff as well because it hasn't been used. So stiff with the grease. And here we have your settings for the distance against this little index here. That's on infinity now. And on either side of it you have your depth of field scale. So that's so stiff. Oh, if we unscrew the lens, we may be able to move it. We unscrew the lens. That's the rangefinder cam there. There's the cloth focal plane shutter. There is the thread. We can loosen it up here. See, that's so stiff and it's got cold. Well, I'm not going to force it because it's not my camera, but it did focus. But you release the catch focus here by pressing that lever. Oh, there we are. It's released now. There we are. It's so stiff the focusing, but not bad for a 1955 camera, is it? There we are. So now your focus down is now 4 feet or 1.2 meters against the little index. So you can guess the focus or you can use the rangefinder. That's on 10 feet or 3 meters there roughly, see? Against that little index. So when you put it back, you really should put it to infinity and hold it carefully. Don't let any raindrops go inside or dust. Very carefully start screwing, and then you can just hold this gently, finish it off like that. Yes, that's all safe. So there's about the controls. It's supposed to be flash synchronized to the X, but this is a fitting on the side for a Canon flash gun, and of course I haven't got that, so it's a weird Canon flash gun which slips on the side there. So it's a base loading camera, exactly the same as a Leica M2 or M6. There we are. So you've got to have a film with a long leader. Now, here is a blast from the past, a Kodachrome 25. Look at that. And it's actually got the Leica leader on it. So we'll actually load that Kodachrome 25. So you put up this, now you put your leader underneath the little clip here. Put it right way round. It goes under the little clip and you push it in gently. Make certain the edge of the film is nicely seated against there. Then you drop that in. There, that's, I don't know how war photographers in Vietnam loaded their Leicas while they was under fire. I've never understood how they managed to do it, because I'm in the safety of my bathroom in Brentwood, still finding it difficult to hear there's nobody shooting at me. Oh, there we are. It's got to be. See, if anything catches with these Canon Leicas, if anything catches, it's going to spoil the whole flipping film. Ah, it's gone in there, look, here it goes. Right, push it down. Now, put the little lid on. Yes, that's all seated correctly. Now, that isn't in properly. See, they're so difficult to load. If it's not seated perfectly, it won't go in. Luckily, the film I used was Agfa APX 100. That goes on like that. Then you can take your snaps and click away and get to the end. You go to R and you pull up this and it rewinds your film back into your cassette. So you can then pull it out, hopefully. Yes, there we are. I've pulled out and the leader's gone inside now. There we are. So we'll show you some pictures done it with it. I used black and white, Agfa APX 100, and I've developed it in my homemade diaphragm 2-bath developer formula. Enables me to rate the film at 250 ASA. It's a very good diaphragm. It's very good. It uprates your film, even though it was out of date. There we are. There's some candid down the Ongar Road. A woman there going past Travis Perkins Builders. There's detail in the shadows and detail in the highlights from the 2-bath developer. That's one of my very old pubs in Brentwood, the Victoria Arms, named after Queen Victoria. That's a balloon shop with a shrouded lady with a hijab going past. This is a sculpture which used to have water coming out until somebody spoilt the motor by putting washing up liquid in, so it cost thousands of pounds of damage. It never works. Here's a guy sitting on a seat in Brentwood High Street. That was taking about f2.8. That was. I guessed the distance because I didn't want to hold it up to my eye in case you saw me. Sharp enough, so I held it at waist level. A shop window, taken f4, 125th. This was taken at 1.4. Some schoolboys coming through a gap in some buildings that I use as one of my test subjects, 1.4. This is a church of Brentwood where I used the 135 lens. That was with the 135 Jupiter. Then I did a close-up with some statues with the 135. And it couples all right, and that Russian Jupiter seemed to work. One of my test subjects is an alleyway. When you get the sun out, you get some effects of the light and shadows and people at the end going past. A walker coming down with shadow coming towards you. No lens flare. More shadows. They're all within 1 mile of my house, or less than 1 mile. Inside my favourite cafe, where we go and have photography chats, Conch's Cafe, where we have pie and mash. This lady was talking. I got her at 1.4 and a 30th of a second, and I guessed the distance. And when she went, I range-finded it wherever it was, and it was accurate. I'd guessed it accurately. Metal sculpture outside the town hall. That was taken at f4. And then to finish up, look, the reluctant pooch. He's following behind. He doesn't really want to go on the exercise, that little pooch. Look, the reluctant dogs. I've managed to catch that. That was at f2 in the woods. Quick snap as they walk past. It's not absolutely range-finded. I think slightly back photo, but it's quite a funny photo. I like that one. Now these are all on very old Kodak Bromesco paper, for about 40 years old. I did it in homemade developer with some benzotriazole anti-fogging. It came out amazingly well. Very old Kodak Bromesco paper. It was 10 by 8. So I've done 2 prints on 1 sheet. Well, there we are. The famous Canon rangefinder. And I'll be very reluctant to give it back to its owner. But I mean, I can't lay out 600 quid for it. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed it. And see you next time, folks.